Knows the difference between stellar and strobe.
No, I know how to spell telescope. Right?
Okay, the difference between solar astronomer and stellar astronomer is one looks at stars and the other looks at the sun.
Oh, okay.
So that's a good question, though.
Because the sun is a star.
The sun is a star, but it's our closest star. But we'll talk more about that when we get out into the open. Let me give you a little bit of history of Kitt Peak and how Kitt Peak got here, so you have some understanding of it. Kitt Peak got here basically because of the Second World War. If you think back before the Second World War, the United States was not sort of big into science. The United States really got into science as a result of the Second World War. And we did a lot of things, developed a lot of scientific things during the Second World War. We developed radar, developed sonar, developed the atom bomb. You can question whether some of those are good or bad, but scientifically the United States became a dominant power. To the conclusion of the Second World War, there was a concern in the U.S. about how they might continue to fund research. Because all the research during the Second World War was funded by the government, obviously. So they thought about it and they came up with the concept of the National Science Foundation. And Harry Truman signed the National Science Foundation into law in 1950, NSF. NSF then and today is designed to provide funding for science, funds everything from cancer research to astronomy. So that's where the money comes from Kitt Peak. Money comes from the National Science Foundation to a group called AURA, Associated Universities for Research in Astronomy. That's that big wooden board you saw out there with all the universities on it. Some 25 or 30 universities that are involved up here. That's the group that provides the technical guidance for running Kitt Peak. Actually, the group that runs Kitt Peak is called NOAO. That's the National Optical Astronomy Observatories. That's a group I volunteer for. They operate observatories here, Chile, and Hawaii. So that's where the money comes from. It comes from the National Science Foundation.
You said Chile?
Pardon?
You said Chile?
Chile, yep.
Which is area of Chile is?
Cerritolo, which is the western coast of Chile, I think. I'm not that familiar with the map of Chile myself.
So it's that telescope you're talking about?
No, they have a number of telescopes in Chile. Where all the big telescopes go now are either in Hawaii or Chile because it's much higher there and much drier there. Really big telescopes they wouldn't put at Kitt Peak any longer. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But in terms of how Kitt Peak got started, again, you go back to the end of the Second World War and you get into the early 50s, there was a concern about it in the U.S. that there was no place that astronomers could do research unless they're associated with a university. If you're at Caltech, you could go to Mount Palomar, but if you weren't from a university that had a telescope, you were in trouble. And they knew they were headed into an era where they wanted to do a lot of research in astronomy. They had a lot of people coming back from the Second World War studying science or headed into the Sputnik area, so they wanted to have a place to do research in astronomy. So they convened a group of astronomers in Flagstaff, Arizona to talk about the concept of building a national observatory. You know why they meet in Flagstaff? What's in Flagstaff? What observatory?
Oh, the Lowell.
Lowell Observatory. You remember why that was built?
I think Sir Thomas Lowell or whatever he called himself.
Yeah, Percival Lowell, the Lowell fortune from Lowell, Massachusetts. They made all their money in garments, a lot of it during the Civil War. Percival Lowell went off and he wanted to build an observatory to prove that the canals on Mars were man-made.